Because no instrument to get platelets transfusion prematurely. But there is no platelets because the machine which do platelets from the blood not work now.
Sanctions, the key process of sanctions, Ramsey Clark mentioned this at the beginning, is the sort of theory, if there is a theory of such a thing, is that you cause economic pain, and the economic pain to the ordinary people is such that they then rise up and overthrow the people in charge, and then you've had a nice simple solution done very quickly. Now that of course hasn't worked. It hasn't worked in the final way. What has happened though is that the economic pain has been spread enormously throughout society. We did again a rough calculation and a checking around with people. We would say in the order of 70% of the population are grossly affected by the sanctions.
The water supply has been particularly affected. The bombing ruptured a high percentage of water pipes in all the cities, including sewage pipes. It has been impossible to repair them all. The lack of sewage pipes causes seepage, particularly in the poorer neighborhoods. We visited Saddam City in Baghdad, a sprawling settlement of 1.5 million people, originally set aside for a rural population migrating to the big city. Most of the residents of Saddam City are farmers and herders who brought their goats, their horses, and chickens with them. Before the bombing, Saddam City was a model community where people lived comfortably. The lack of sewage pipes and sanitation facilities has made Saddam City into a nightmare of heaps of garbage, raw sewage, and pools of infested water. The goats and sheep and other animals graze on the garbage, and little children try to forage there too, trying to collect paper for school, maybe toys, maybe things to sell, maybe food. We saw one little girl struggling with a goat for her share of strips of white paper. The children play on the garbage, oblivious to the stench and the danger of disease. According to the mayor of Baghdad, daily 600 tons of garbage is produced in that city. They once had 800 garbage collection trucks. Now, due to lack of spare parts, they have 150 trucks, and the number is diminishing. After Saddam City, the water commissioner took us to a sewage treatment plant in Baghdad, where the sewage water flows through the treatment plant and out into the Tigris River. The plant, obviously once quite elaborate, is simply non-functional. They cannot heat the water to rid it of harmful bacteria. They cannot sift out the oil that is mixed with the water. They cannot do anything but let it flow in and out into the Tigris, where people still fish and pick.
This sanction business, they have something which they call multi-use. If you ask for a ball bearing for a pump here, they could say this could be used in a military plant. Yeah. So we cannot give you the ball bearing. The sewage you saw in the plant. The plant now is just like a pipeline.
The people here, who live here, do they drink the water? And they're alive. Do they boil it, I guess?
They know.
And they wash their clothes in it.
You drop what?
Lack of medicine combined with a lot more sickness from bad water and the spread of disease from pollution and garbage and all. It's one of the principal causes of death. Before what we call the Gulf War, which of course wasn't a war at all, it was a simple assault, Iraq was producing about half of its pharmaceuticals. Today its production is about 15% of what it was before the war because it can't get simple raw materials. And of course importation is 2%. So you can see what dire straits they're in from the standpoint of simple medicines. You go through a huge pharmaceutical plant and you see a simple machine that, given some very inexpensive and common raw materials, can produce little tablets that can prevent dehydration. Dehydration is one of the principal causes of death. People are drinking bad water, people get sick, and it's an incredibly cruel experience. During the bombing, it was particularly cruel because people were dehydrating, and the only water you had was the same water that made them sick. So here you know how dry you get, and you want more water, and you drink more water, and it makes you sicker, and dehydration can take you out quickly. So here are these little tablets, including children's and infants' tablets. It costs pennies. They can stop dehydration, and they call them rehydration tablets sometimes. And the machine standing there like it's in burial shrouds, draped to keep it clean. Actually, idle workers come through and polish it up once in a while, but production is almost non-existent because they can't get the simple raw materials. And the United States specifically proscribes those raw materials, claiming that they can be used for explosives.
Each patient we give one before tab or 2 tab.
You can give him one.
The injection is expired, 4 months. Expired. About 1 week these drugs appear because they're expired.
But she's one of the lucky ones because she got some medicine.
In Basra, we visited a school. To enter, we had to cross a pool of fly-covered water by means of a series of paving stones. The playground is also covered with water, swarming with flies.
They still have the machine to put the water from it. They don't have them anymore.
But this was not the schoolyard, was it?
Yeah, the schoolyard, yes.
This was the schoolyard.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's good.
That was their playground.
Yeah.
This is their playground. The children, half of whom are barefoot, must come to that school over those pools of water every day. They showed us the benches that have no wooden slats, the broken desks.
See how the covers
They have
torn and
How many years has this book been used?
The 3 years.
probably 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a workbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, right in there.
Pencils have been forbidden by the UN because the graphite may be used for explosives.
When you think of the stunning death rate among children in Iraq, up 7-fold infant mortality, staggering, but children under 5, more than 500,000, way more than 500,000 dead from the sanctions. And yet here we go through garbage-laden streets with cesspools all around because sewage systems are percolating up because they've been crushed by bombing and corroded out, and the children are playing. That's the salvation of life, the children playing. The children cannot not play, even when you're killing them.
They fear opposition, the enormity of their crime being exposed. And they try to cover it with many cosmetic statements about peace, human rights, and democracy. In the Security Council, they've passed public relations resolutions that food and medicine are exempt from the sanctions. And then they freeze all the funds that could buy supplies. Or take the recent resolution 986 that says Iraq can sell $2 billion of oil every 6 months. Sounds like a lot. The U.S., the British, they say Iraq just has to accept our conditions and it can feed its population, and that it's Iraq that's starving its people. That's the present line. And this is a public relations fraud. In Resolution 986, a third of the $2 billion goes to Kuwait, 15% to U.S. monitoring, other parts to areas under UN control in the north and in the south. It consolidates the partitioning of Iraq, It gives the Pentagon and the Security Council control of the oil, and it consolidates the sanctions in place. And at best, it would provide less than 20 cents a day per person. Less than, even if it were all to be distributed, less than a quarter of the food needed just to stay alive. We have to expose the human face of this new weapon of sanctions, especially the children. We have to put the reports from their own agencies, such as the FAO report and other reports, in every library, on every campus, in community centers, in churches, in mosques and synagogues, in union offices, and be sure that no politician can say, we didn't know.
The United States sees sanctions as its great new weapon, and its means of controlling at least the poor of the planet, who are the great majority. Since World War II, we've initiated and forced rather 90% of all the sanctions, individual cases of sanctions that have been employed, and the most severe ones by far are ours. Some all by ourselves, as in the case of Cuba. Only the U.S., condemned by the whole world community. Are paying and have paid a terrible price for that. People come to know. You can't help but know. You grow up with the knowledge. And to be indifferent to the deaths of thousands and thousands of children, to the stunting of thousands more from malnutrition, will destroy you. It's imperative to the future of the United States that we recognize the meaning of these sanctions, and that citizens and others in this country stop it now before we destroy ourselves.